All right, so listen to this. According to the World Health Organization, more than 6 million men experience depression each year, but it often goes undiagnosed. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and today we are going to take a deep dive into why men's mental health is so important and not discussed a lot.
Hear, hear. So joining us to talk about why 40% of men won't talk to anyone about their mental health is psychotherapist Tom Kersting. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is a very big moment for the fellas.
Yes. All of whom are behind here.
Okay?
Listen up, fellas. You up there, too.
We love you and we care about you. Why do men not want to talk about their mental health?
I think there's a stigma for men, you know, so women are much more prone to discuss what's going on in their lives. Like men, when we go out, it's a lot of banter, we just make fun of each other, right? So that's something that's like actually lacking, I believe, in society, is for men, is the opportunity to actually have deep, meaningful conversations with colleagues, instead of just, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or man up and this and that. And as a result, men, you know, they don't tell their wives if they're struggling with stress or depression, for the most part. And they don't seek help because they look at it as being a stigma. Like, if I got to reach out for help, then I'm not manly. And it's the furthest thing from true.
Well, how about enter Jerry Seinfeld, Exhibit A? Because he just went public with a comment about missing dominant masculinity, which begged the question, what exactly is dominant masculinity? What was your take when he came out with that?
Yes, I think, you know, society may perceive that in a different way as like tough guys, blah, blah, blah. So my father, perfect example, right? Vietnam veteran, career police officer, right? Masculine guy, but a genteel father and husband, like a revered human being. And that's how I aspire to be with my own family, to be like my dad.
I like that. It makes me think of JL.
I hope Jerry's in therapy.
Yeah,
Jerry?
we love you, Jerry.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What are some signs of mental health issues in men specifically that we or they should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, well, some of the things are, you know, if you have a husband, for example, that is very fatigued and tired, is gaining weight, maybe overeating, self-medicating on food, sometimes consuming too much alcohol. And if there's, you know, if your husband, I'll just use that as an example, stress and anxiety, men put a lot of pressure on themselves to be providers and have to pull things together for the family. By today's standard, that's more mutual nowadays, which is a good thing. So, you know, those are the kind of things you want to look out for. And I think it's important for, you know, the spouses of husbands, if they see any little changes in behavior, or you know, men also get angry and temperamental when they're struggling with stuff, is to open up, you know, the dialogue with their spouses and, and force them to have conversations.
Create the safe space at home. I remember my ex-husband, I said, you need to go to therapy. He was like, next.
Divorce.
We got divorced 3 years later. Talk to me, it's true. Talk to me about this term that you, which I love. It's called, what is it called?
Mental wealth.
Mental wealth. I love that.
So,
what does that mean?
I'll ask both of you a question, right? When you hear the word mental health, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Therapy.
Therapy.
Okay, what else? Okay.
Therapy.
When you hear the term mental wealth, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Having a good mental standing, perhaps?
Abundance, joy, happiness,
I think
right?
abundance.
So I think the term mental health has been construed as something negative.
Yes.
And if you look at it as something positive, mental wealth, you know, we have the ability, you know, as human beings, particularly men and women alike, you know, we tend to, you know, our mind subconsciously focuses on what we lack and what's not going right. And when we proactively take time on a daily basis and sit in silence for 10 or 15 minutes, we are now doing our thinking instead of being controlled by our thinking. So we're in the process of constructing, you know, a very sound, strong mental health / mental wealth.
Right. Well, it's interesting to hear you talk about your dad, who was the sort of cliche manly man, a cop, a war veteran, East Tremont, right? Grew up in the Bronx.
Grew up in the Bronx.
And yet here you are. You don't take me as any of those things except for the genteel part. So what was the trigger for you to choose this path and really it's your calling, because you're helping other men around the world
it was actually in college when I was a baseball player. And
it always comes back to baseball.
We say this on the show every day.
I lost the strike zone. A guy on my team said, why don't you go see a sports psychologist? I said, why don't you beep, beep, beep. And then I went and saw a sports psychologist, and I was so fascinated by the transformation that I took a psychology elective course and then changed my major to psychology, and the rest is history.
Oh my goodness.
So it was through sports, another quote and unquote.
Sport, a metaphor for life.
That's right. By the way, there's a team in Flushing who could use some of that, so we'll talk offline. Sorry.
There it is.
Team in the Bronx is doing pretty well.
I am aware. I am aware.
Okay, I want to switch gears for a second. 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety, but less than half will receive treatment. So what are some things that you advise or that you hope that men can do to help themselves if they're still kind of, unsure about seeking help? Or what do you have to say to them?
So I want to go back. I brought my book, my recent book, Raising Healthy
Oh, I
Teenagers.
love that.
And I was going through some stuff last night, and I have a chapter in here about college admissions.
Okay.
And
I just went through that.
So it's got to
hold on.
start younger. So for example, right now, women make up 60% of all college students, right? Versus 40%. And colleges and universities saw a decline of 1.5 million students 5 years ago, and 71% of them were men.
Interesting.
So even probably more importantly is that there's over 500 women's centers in universities and colleges across the country, and we can't really find any for men. Discovered one at University of Oregon. So the support isn't really out there the same way. Like, women have advanced spectacularly, which is what we want, but at the same time, it's almost like young men are falling behind a little bit. And you have to have those college centers for men and have the help available for them.
Right.
I think it should start there.
Yeah,
Start early. Interesting.
exactly.
I like all of that. Well, this has been, I feel like we just scratched the surface.
I know. How are all the men on the floor feeling?
Everybody
Everyone feel
okay?
good?
Everybody okay? Oh,
Yep,
oh,
okay.
getting a dirty
Michael's
look
crying.
here, there,
Okay.
everywhere.
Well, Tom, thank you.
so much.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
And listen, if you're living with mental health concerns or feeling suicidal, there are places that you can turn to. Speak with a healthcare professional or call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org.
Such an important conversation to have.
Yes.